With liberal critics saying all the president cares about is getting his border wall. He made it clear this is not about politics.
This is really a bill on border safety, border security, and it's a bill on, I would say, maybe more than anything else, we're here talking about drug trafficking.
Well, joining me now with reaction, counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, what is the White House's message tonight to those Republican senators who look poised to reject the president's emergency declaration, including, and it breaks my heart, Mike Lee of Utah? Okay, Murkowski doesn't surprise me at all. But Mike Lee and Rand Paul, you're on my you-know-what list tonight. I'm sorry. It is appalling.
Well, I was in two separate briefings with the president today, and in both times he said, take the vote you want to take, but I think it's a bad vote. He said this is an easy decision. It's quite binary. You either are for border security, the sovereignty of this nation, keeping the drugs out of our communities, Laura, the human traffickers out, the illegal flow of people, particularly those unaccompanied minors and families coming from the Northern Triangle, or you're not. And he doesn't believe you can divorce the two just because you want to hide behind a process argument. He is focused on the substance, as he has been for 4 straight years now. And the substance is very simple. When you look at the drugs flowing in, not just at the ports of entry, but we saw data today about all the fentanyl, this ultra-lethal synthetic opioid that's coming between the ports of entry. A very important article today called The Fentanyl Failure, of all places, in the Washington Post. Brilliant article. The Fentanyl Failure. Please, folks, please read it. The fentanyl failure refers to how the Obama administration did absolutely nothing to mitigate and curb the rising epidemic of the synthetic opioid that now has claimed about 67,000 Americans, more than Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan wars put together.
Well, not a
tiny little grain, Laura, is lethal.
Kellyanne, but I got to go back to what's happened on Capitol Hill. Now, they'll make a constitutional argument. I think your White House counsel's office clearly is right that this was an absolute delegation of congressional authority to the president in the 1970s to declare emergencies. Now they claim they didn't do that. Well, they did it. If they want to change it, they should change that law. But on this question of what's going to happen next, the president will veto this if it gets rejected, which it looks like he will. He'll veto it, and then what happens at the border with the construction of the wall? What happens?
Well, the president will look at the options, and obviously they don't have enough votes to override.
Why are we still looking at options, Kellyanne? We've been talking about the wall for 2 years. What options?
Well, but that's not his fault. A Republican Congress failed him first. Now the Democratic Congress is. This president has made clear that he wanted money for the wall funding. Remember, Laura, when he signed that omnibus spending package, he said, I don't like it, but there's $716 billion for the troops. It just went up to $750 billion. There's all this money for the troops. We've got some other stuff in here that we're funding, like the opioid crisis, like some other measures. And then he said, but you have to give me the wall funding. The Republican Congress said, sure, we'll get you that funding this Congress, and they didn't do it. And now the Democrats certainly aren't going to do it. But you know what? This president says every day he's moving on with the construction. And this new budget has $32.5 billion for border security measures. That includes additional Border Patrol agents. That includes technology enhancements. But it also includes money for the wall, the military construction funds, the drug diversion funds.
So tonight you still don't know where you're getting the money, though? I get we all know what the president wants.
Well,
but tonight, do we not know where we're getting the money? I mean, you guys have had a lot of time to figure this out.
Well, it's in the budget. We figured it out many times. If they want to, look, if these Republicans who know this president is within his full legal authority to declare a national emergency after he gave them months to do their jobs, Laura, the courts and the Congress have failed to do their jobs on immigration for decades. This president used the declaration of the national emergency as his course of last resort.
I'm just trying to figure out where he's getting the money. We're spending money enforcing other countries' borders, Kellyanne. I get it. Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan. Bring the money home to enforce our borders. I think most people are saying, what the heck are we doing? I want to get your thoughts on this, though. The Democrats love to say that the president or his allies, Kellyanne, dehumanize folks. Let's watch.
Trump dehumanizes, name calls, degenerates people, denigrates people.
You have a man that has dehumanized children taking the children from their parents.
This is just an extension of the Trump brand, and this dehumanization of immigrants.
Okay, Kellyanne, what are the Democrats' reaction then to this?
Do you think that President Obama is the same as President
Absolutely not. That is silly to even think and equate the two. One is human, the other is...
Is it true that...
Jared and Ivanka, just on the facts, forget the book for a second, they've outlasted everybody. Well, is it a sign that loyalty is preeminent with the Trumps?
I don't think so. No, I think mediocrity is. When you're too mediocre, even for Donald Trump, you really got a problem. And of course they survived. I mean, cockroaches are going to survive nuclear war.
Kellyanne, cockroaches, we know the word vermin used by Hitler's coterie to describe Jews.
So
I'm sure
I want to tell you something.
I found that to be... Go ahead.
Oh, it's beyond. The word dehumanization absolutely applies to the way so many people have treated those of us who work in the White House. But so what? I'm going to give you a little news flash. We don't really care. They've been trying to cut us down and push us out since we arrived. And those of us who are there for the right reasons and are surviving all of this and thriving beautifully, it doesn't matter. And I know that's true about Jared and Ivanka as well. The media don't like to cover anything that they're trying to do. Her Global Women's Fund, or what he's done on criminal justice reform, or Mideast peace,
no, it doesn't
trade,
count.
certainly the USMCA president had a big meeting. No, they don't want to cover anything. But you know what? I'm not sure it matters so much. I think the media matter to themselves and to each other. Yeah. But there's a lot of noise and a lot of nonsense out there. I think people know that they're doing much better. But you know what? I'm glad you played all those clips for another reason. Stop the nonsense, everybody, about we are for all women. We are pro-women. We are for independent thinkers. You have Elizabeth Warren running for president. She tried to appropriate somebody else's ethnicity. She lied about that. They've got a bunch of, I like to say, I don't see any presidential timber yet, just presidential wood chips.
Yeah, Kellyanne, thanks so much. It's great to have you on tonight.
So here's what we're waiting on. 3 things. We're waiting on the Brexit vote outcome. We are waiting on the president meeting with the Federal Aviation Administration. And apparently right now the president is supposed to be meeting with GOP senators. And we don't know what he's discussing, but it will possibly include this threat of slapping a 25% tariff on foreign cars that are imported to the United States. Now there is congressional pushback from both sides of the aisle. Why? Well, let's put the answer in the form of a question for you. And here's the question. From a business perspective, can anyone guess which of these automakers, Ford, GM, or Chrysler, is the largest U.S. car exporter, meaning cars made in the U.S. that go to foreign countries? Answer? None of the above. Who is it? For the 5th year in a row, Germany's BMW is the biggest exporter of American-made cars. 34,689 model SUVs, all pumped out of its plant in Greer, South Carolina, made by American labor. Our next guests both represent states where foreign car companies employ thousands of workers. They are co-sponsoring a bill that would prevent the Trump administration from hitting foreign car companies with punishing tariffs. We welcome Alabama Democrat Congresswoman Terry Sewell and Indiana Republican Congresswoman Jackie Walorski. Congresswoman Walorski, I'm going to start with you. Give us a snapshot of how this bill you've co-sponsored with Congresswoman Sewell would stop potential tariffs on foreign cars in their tracks.
Well, this is an important bill. Number one, I've been involved in this a long time. I have a very large manufacturing district, one of the largest in the country. We've been on this issue of tariffs and trade and now enter this conversation about autos. So in my district, we make all the RVs, boats, and trailers you could possibly imagine with the steel and aluminum tariffs that have to come off of the USMCA. But this is what happens when you start talking autos and component pieces and parts that are made for autos, and that goes from California, the impact, to New York, and it impacts all of us.
Everyone.
That are everybody. But it also can bleed into the RVs, the boats, and the trailers that are made in my district. Who's going to say if you make a component part that goes into 7 different vehicles and also something that's not an auto vehicle, what do you do then? This would have horrific consequences. It's too broad, it's too big, and we should be using a scalpel and not an axe.
You know, I forgot about Elkhart, Indiana, but
yes,
in Indiana it's GM, Honda, Subaru, Toyota, and now Congresswoman Sewell. We looked up how many foreign car companies manufacture in your state of Alabama. Mercedes, Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, but also the whole auto ecosystem. Your state has 49 suppliers and parts companies.
Absolutely.
How
so it's a whole
tariffs,
chain.
Yeah. How would tariffs on foreign imports impact your state if they did go through?
It would be a huge devastation if we had retaliatory tariffs on autos. In my district alone, and my district is one of the poor districts in the state of Alabama, but we have Mercedes-Benz and Hyundai. And of course, Mazda, Toyota just announced that they're going to be in North Alabama. But it would really affect the whole supply chain when it comes to autos. And so what our bill does, and I think that it's a show of civility and more importantly bipartisan support for the jobs that it would mean in both of our districts and all across America. But our bill would require the DOD to review whether or not autos would be a national security threat and not Commerce Department. And I think that when you start talking about Section 232, it just makes sense to both of us. Why is it that the Commerce is making that decision and not the Department of Defense?
And I think that's
I do have to interrupt you both. We have a Brexit vote coming down. Here's what I want. I want you both to come back when the bill is presented. Can you do that? We really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Anytime. Congresswoman Terry Sewell, Democrat. Jackie Walorski is, of course, a Republican. Bipartisan, bicameral plan here.